When we return, we shall discuss mapping plus considerations for the Iron Realm tribe. Your host has the common mapping shapes for your reference from the Iron Realm Solitaire Essentials and Gaming Guide. Mapping is optional, but detail the tunnels and corridors as you wish. The clues that mapping grants may help you in future challenges.
While going through the Iron Realm, some of you might find it interesting to map along with the group. Should you decide to do so, your reward will be having your own map, your own authentic, personally drawn, one-of-a-kind map of the Iron Realm. Looks like the level 1 dungeon will be 43 squares wide and 33 squares high. If you count 20 squares across the top, then count 20 squares down, find out where that lines up, and just put a little dot in that spot on your graph paper. That will be the starting point of the map. So now that you've put your point on the paper at 20 across and 20 down, I'd like you to turn your attention to the square that is to the upper right of that location. In other words, turn your attention to the square, which is located at 21 across and 19 down. That square is basically a box. That box has 4 sides. What I want you to do is I want you to trace over 2 of those sides. I want you to trace the 2 sides that would make a letter L. Now, going back to that original point you made at location 20, I want you to look to the square which is to the lower right. Just go diagonal down to the lower right, and this would be the square located at 21 across, 21 down. I want you to trace over 2 of the sides on that square. Trace over the top side of that square, trace over the left side of that square. So what you've basically done is mirrored the L shape. Next, let's go to the square which is to the upper left of your original dot. I want you to trace over 2 lines in this square. Trace over the rightmost line and trace over the bottommost line, which will give you kind of a backwards L shape. Finally, what I would like you to do is go to the square located at 19 across and 21 down. Outline the line which is on the upper portion of that square, and also outline the line that is on the right portion of that square. When you're all done, you should have something that looks like a plus sign. If you like, where that dot is in the middle, you could draw over it with sort of a little circle. That is a trapdoor in the ceiling. That is the starting point for the adventure. In the future, I will refer to this shape as a crossroads. The shape, like a plus sign, which extends in 4 directions. 2 horizontal directions, 2 vertical directions. So this is the entrance into level 1. The 7 player characters have escaped from above, escaped the Goblin Kingdom, and come to this place. The Iron Realm is completely pitch black. It is impossible for any of the humans to see. They definitely need the help of their companions, the elf and the dwarf. And actually the halfling cannot see in the dark either, so they all need to work together. The Iron Realm tends to have this ambient cold everywhere. The temperature of the Iron Realm is usually between 50 degrees and 60 degrees. Every place in here tends to be relatively cold. Most of the time, the walls are made of hewn stone. It's rare to find the corridors to be made of brick. Usually they're carved straight out of the rock through hundreds, maybe thousands of years of effort by whatever creatures came before. For the sake of argument, I'm going to say that it is the first day of the first month. The first month is called Primaris, and in the Iron Realm, every month is considered to have 30 days. What is a day? What is night in a place where it is total darkness constantly? I am going to go on the assumption that human beings basically have a body clock. You have to sleep for 8 hours. Your body probably needs about 16 hours of activity. So although the idea of the passage of time might feel a little bit abstract in a realm of total darkness, I'm going to measure it anyway. I'm going to assume that it is 8 a.m. in the morning when the party escapes from the goblins. I'm also going to indicate that the group is being as absolutely quiet as they can be at all times. They will never speak to each other unless I am so indicating. They will always move through this dungeon as carefully as they possibly can. Of course, in the Iron Realm, they start out with no belongings whatsoever. They were given nothing by the goblins. They were allowed to keep nothing. Additionally, they're going to have to find food and water if they're going to survive. This will be their first challenge in the Iron Realm. This is hardcore gaming. What would you do? I'm also going to have to consider the marching order for the group. The scale of the map is 1 square equals 10 feet by 10 feet. So each square could accommodate 2 humans or demi-humans standing abreast. We'll put Solus in the front with Stockholm. That way the dwarf can guide him. There's only one other character with infravision, and that would be Treya the elf, and I'll put her in the back. And next to Treya the elf, we can have Temek the halfling. I'm going to say that in the rank right behind the front, behind Solus and Stockholm, I'm going to put Len, the cleric, and next to her, I'm going to put Echo the rogue. And behind Echo the rogue, I will put Kaylana the wizard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the marching order. So if wanderers are encountered, it will be the dwarf and the fighter that will encounter them first. If creatures come from behind, it will be Treya the elf and her friend Temek the halfling, who will handle it from the back. It might be a fortunate thing to acquire a light source at a later time, and I dearly hope that they're able to do this. Those that cannot see in the dark are going to be fighting with a great penalty. If I'm not mistaken, that's going to be a -4. The unfortunate thing, however, is that lights also draw attention, so that could be deadly as well. The group is going to be able to move 12 squares every 10 minutes. So the first thing that happens in this area is that the characters become very, very quiet. They can hear the goblins above them. They can hear the noise of their pursuers. They become as quiet as they can, hoping that their exit has not been discovered. Eventually, the sound of the goblins dies down after about 10 minutes, and the characters decide that they can continue. Stockholm the dwarf and Echo the rogue search carefully through their immediate area to see if there are any traps. Echo is working at a heavy minus for being in the dark, but ultimately the group together decides that there are no traps. They realize that the passageway goes in 4 directions from where they are: north, south, east, and west. I believe that they will decide to go south.
This way,
says Stockholm the dwarf in a hissed whisper. So start out from the square that is at the bottom of your plus sign. The characters are going to go south 1 square. So in the new square, directly south of the one you were just in, make an L shape, then move to the east 1 square, and make a reverse L shape. Then there's a square just north of that. Close it off by outlining the rightmost side of the box. As you can see, it has finished in a dead end because it has contacted that original crossroads. The characters could spend some time searching for a secret door at this point, but they decide not to do so. They actually retreat back to the center square of the crossroads that they originally entered level 1 at. Next, the characters are going to try heading north. So let's place them at the uppermost square of the crossroads. And from this point, the corridor is a straightaway. it goes 6 squares to the north. On the 6th square, the passageway is wide open. Next, the characters come upon a second crossroads. So you are going to have to draw a plus sign corridor shape, which is similar to the very first shape you drew. The characters cautiously move into the center square of the crossroads. As they listen quietly, they can hear the sounds of creatures far off. Stockholm holds his finger to his lips and hushes the others. Shh! As the sounds of the faraway creatures die down, the group considers again what direction they should take next. The characters decide to head east. Directly to the east, there's a T section. When adding a T section, first, extend the corridor by just 1 square. Do this in the square east of the crossroads by outlining the line on the top and the bottom of the next box. You've basically extended the crossroads east by 1 square. Then go 1 more square to the east, and in this new square, outline the eastmost side of the box. As you see, you can no longer go east. There's a choice of north or south. When adding the T, you can extend the corridor north and south 1 square in each direction. So for the square just to the north, outline the east and western sides of that box, and to the square south of the T, outline the sides east and west of the box. There's your T shape. Following Stockholm's urging, the characters move to the south. There's another straightaway, so extend the bottom of the T by 3 more squares. When you get to the 3rd square, that one is open, and at the end of that square, it opens up into another T shape. So remember, to add the T shape, it will be 4 squares total. Draw the first square by extending the corridor south by 1 more square. Then complete your T shape. So block additional travel to the south, but leave open the possibility of travel to the east or west. There you've got your new T shape. Now if you've done this correctly, you should be at 23 across and 17 down. That represents the intersection of the T shape. Characters decide to press on to the east, where they encounter a hairpin. A hairpin is kind of like a U shape. It takes up a total of 4 squares. So first, extend the corridor to the east, 1 more square. In the very next square to the east, close off the southmost and the eastmost walls. That leaves only northward movement is possible. Move a square to the north and close off the eastmost wall and the northmost wall, which heads back the way you came. And then extend that corridor 1 more square to the west. There's your hairpin, which is doubling back towards the T section. When the characters head 1 more square to the west, they're up against a wall, having only north as their option. They head north 1 square and see that they can either head east or north from where they are. Of these corridors, they decide to head east. Extend the corridor 1 more square to the east, and then it branches into a T going north and south. The characters stand at the center of the T, trying to decide if they should go north or south. They head south into the lower part of the T, extend that corridor 1 more square, it hairpins to the characters east, and comes back the way they came. They are 28 across and 17 down. That is the end of the hairpin. As the characters move 1 square north, they see that the corridor branches to the east and also continues to the north. As the characters move to the east, they move a total of 1, 2, 3 squares, and on the 3rd square, the corridor branches to the north and the south. The characters head north 1, 2, 3 squares, and on the 3rd square, the corridor branches to the east, west, and continues north. The characters move to the east, and the corridor continues 4 total squares. On the 4th square, the corridor turns to the south. The characters head 3 squares to the south, and on the 3rd square, the corridor moves to the east and the west. The characters head to the east. After moving 3 squares to the east, it opens into a crossroad by continuing east and also north and south. The characters head to the north. The corridor goes 2 total squares, and on the 2nd square, there's a door on the north wall. There is no other way to go except for the door. As the characters come to the door, Stockholm holds up his hand. He searches for traps. He finds none. He reaches out to the rogue, saying,
"This way, girl."
She eyes him suspiciously at first, but moves forward carefully, checking the door for traps by running her thin fingers along it. She also finds nothing.
"Should we go in?"
says Temmek, nervously.
"Maybe we should go in."
"Wait,"
says Solus.
"I think I heard something."
What will the group find next in the Iron Realm? Having escaped successfully from the goblins, at least for now, they have come across a door. Will it provide shelter for them in this dangerous realm, or will it provide more peril? Tribal Matters. During the Tribal Matters segment, you will receive an update on the character's status. The characters are on level 1 of the dungeon. They are located at 38 across, 14 down. They are right outside the first door. All characters currently have full life points. The room is 4 squares wide and 6 squares north to south. The door is located in the second square of the southern wall. Stockholm the dwarf opens the door, and as the door begins to come away from the frame, instantly a shining red glow emanates into the hallway.
"Be careful,"
says Len, and the group is immediately on their guard. Yet, when no danger is obvious, the group carefully moves inside, closing the door behind them. There is a great crystal positioned at the exact center of the room. It is hovering a few feet above the floor. It looks much like an exploding star, with shards emanating out in all directions. A low hum comes from the crystal. The characters approach it very carefully, allowing their eyes to adjust as the soft, red light falls upon their bodies and illuminates them to one another. On your map, go ahead and draw an asterisk-type shape at the exact center of the room. You'll notice that it doesn't fall into an exact square. Indulging briefly in each other's presence, the characters move on to the more practical matters of the current moment.
"Let's stay clear of the crystal too,"
says Stockholm.
"We'd best not touch it, since we know not what it is."
I'm going to rule that the characters have a 20% chance of finding some rocks in the room that they may be able to use as weapons.